From homeless black man to millionaire, the Elon, Musk, and Trump connection. The glittering chandelier lights cast dazzling sparkles over the room, but tonight, beneath the smiles and clinking glasses, a secret was about to explode. In the heart of New York City, the richest and most powerful gathered at a charity gala that whispered luxury with every step. Designer suits, sparkling jewels, and champagne bubbles bursting like tiny stars. At the center stood Jackson Pierce, a billionaire known everywhere but understood by no one. His empire stretched across continents, his name in every headline. Everyone knew he had one son, Ethan, the boy who seemed born with charisma stitched into his skin, smart beyond his years and lighting up every room. But tonight, something shifted. Jackson laughed, a deep, full sound, while Ethan, that brilliant boy, leaned into a conversation about family. Then, out of nowhere, around him, wealthy faces twisted into confusion and surprise, and watching from a shadowed corner, wrapped in worn layers, was Mariah. Her clothes told stories of a life wrapped tight in hardship, nights on cold streets, hungry days, tears no one saw. But her eyes, those fierce, tired eyes, held a secret sharper than diamonds. She knew the truth Jackson didn't want to face. Ethan? That boy? Her son, taken from her at birth. Pulled from her arms by a cruel world that punished her for being too poor, too alone. Her heart clenched, breaking over and over inside her chest. That boy, her blood, her flesh, and he didn't even know. Jackson's world, the one of gold and towers and power dinners, started to crumble. The polished suit suddenly felt heavy, like armor he couldn't shed. A man with money so thick it could buy silence and shadows, now silenced by the pure shock of a child's innocent words. Whispers curled through the crowd like wildfire. Questions blacker than the night unfurled. How deep did this secret go? What dark roots tangled beneath their family's fortune? Rumors had always swirled. Rumors about Jackson's sudden rise, whispered links to backdoor deals and betrayals whispered in smoky rooms. Now, all eyes were just on the money. They searched for truth. Mariah's fists clenched. She wasn't just fighting for her son's love. She was ready to expose everything. The hidden deals, the lies that built Jackson's empire, brick by brick. The legal battle ahead promised to rip open wounds no one dared name aloud. Inside that glittering ballroom, alliances trembled. Loyalties sounded like shaky promises. Jackson's smile faded into haunted glances. Ethan looked between them, confusion twisting his face, hurt creeping in like a slow shadow. Then, just as the room settled into unsettled silence, Mariah's phone buzzed sharply against the hard floor where she stood. An ominous text lighting up the screen. Someone's watching. This goes deeper than you think. Her breath caught. The air thickened. Someone knew. And now, nothing. The truth, the lies, the love torn by years of pain could be hidden any longer. Hey, Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like. That really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watch? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The phone's buzz shattered the silence, a sharp crack in the tense air. Mariah froze, her heart drumming wildly against her chest. Someone's watching. This goes deeper than you think. The words burned into her mind, and panic surged up like a tidal wave. Who knew? What did they know? Jackson turned, his eyes narrowing. The facade of the confident businessman was peeling away. "Ethan," he pleaded, reaching for his son, but the boy stepped back, confusion painting his young face. "Dad?" Ethan looked between Mariah and Jackson, his innocence tangled in their heavy emotions. "What does she mean? Who's watching?" A distant shout erupted from the entrance. The doors flung open, revealing a figure cloaked in shadows, rushing inside as if propelled by the very storm of chaos swirling in the room. The crowd shifted, a wave of gasps rippling through the gala like a virus. "Stop everything!" The stranger's voice rang with authority, slicing through the tension. A hush fell, all eyes flicking toward the interruption. Mariah squinted through the dimmed lights. It was a woman, a tall, imposing figure with striking features and an air that demanded attention. "You need to hear this!" Jackson's pulse raced. "Who the hell are you?" he barked, stepping protectively in front of Ethan. But the woman wasn't here for pleasantries. She raised a hand, revealing a glowing tablet, her fingers dancing across the screen. "I have proof," she said, her voice firm, striking like a hammer against steel. "Proof that will change everything." "What do you mean?" Mariah stepped forward, desperation creeping into her voice. "Change what?" The woman's eyes locked onto hers. "You think your son is the only secret here?" Her lips curled into a knowing smirk. "Jackson isn't who you think he is. And Ethan, well, he's at the center of a much larger game." As she pressed a button, the tablet projected an image onto the wall. A blurry photograph of a smiling Jackson in the company of men wearing expensive suits, arms draped around each other. But as the image sharpened, Mariah's heart sank. The men surrounding Jackson wore familiar faces. Shock settled like a heavy weight. "No, it can't be," Mariah whispered, reeling. The faces belonged to powerful figures, names whispered in dark corners, rumored to be connected to underground networks, networks that scared her to even think of. "Everything you thought was success," the woman continued, her voice growing louder, "it's built on betrayals, blood, and lies. Jackson's rise? It's not happenstance. It's orchestrated." "Mama, what's happening?" Ethan's voice wove through the turmoil. And suddenly, Mariah felt the sting of tears. Not for herself, but for him. He had no idea. Jackson's bravado crumbled, revealing raw fear beneath. "What do you want?" he managed, each word tasting like ashes on his tongue. "I want the truth, and you're going to help me deliver it," the woman said, her gaze unwavering. or watch everything burn to the ground, including your precious family. Gasps erupted in the room, fluttering around like trapped birds. Jackson's eyes darted, scanning the crowd for support. But what he found were faces painted with doubt, whispers trailing like smoke. In that moment, Mariah felt the ground shift beneath her own dreams. Everything she thought she'd gain, every hope of reconnecting with Ethan, spun away into chaos. Who would believe her now? "Ethan!" she croaked, the lump in her throat choking her words. "Stay close." And as the woman stepped forward, pushing the boundaries of their fragile reality, the chill of betrayal wrapped tight around them. Jackson's empire wasn't just built on lies. It was a house of cards ready to fall. And in the midst of it all, someone was watching and waiting. Nothing could ever remain the same again. Mariah's heart raced. Each beat. Panic clawed at her throat. The message buzzed again, a pressing weight on her heart. Someone's watching. But who? Why now? Her eyes darted around the lavish ballroom, searching for signs of danger. Everyone's smiles seemed painted on, and the glimmering chandeliers above felt oppressive. Jackson, bewildered, stood frozen before the tidal wave of whispers crashing over him. His carefully curated world of wealth and dominance was faltering. Ethan clutched his father's sleeve, confusion twisting his young features. "Dad, what's happening?" The boy's innocence cut through the tension, but left the room racked in tighter silence. And then it hit. A sudden loud crash reverberated through the air. Glass shattered. Chairs tipped over as a figure stumbled through the throng. Mariah's breath halted. A young man, disheveled and wild-eyed, surged forward. A stark contrast in this ocean of tailored suits. He was breathless, fear lining his face. "Jackson Pierce!" he shouted, voice trembling but resolute. "You have to listen to me." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jackson's eyes bore into the interrupter. "Who are you?" "Your brother!" The revelation hung heavy in the air, dragging oxygen from the room. Mariah's heart plummeteó. Se sintió un familiar chorno en su cabeza. ¿Era una jugada torturada? Sus propias manos te tumultaban, irritando su espalda sobre la cabeza. The crowd rumbled, escepticism permeating the atmosphere. "Eso es imposible, no tengo hermano." "Pero," la duda entrelazó en su voz, gambaña su pala de confianza. Yes, we grew up apart and went on. "Se jure." "But I found out the truth. Our mother, she didn't." Ethan stared eyes wide with confusion, bouncing back and forth between his father and this chaotic revelation. Jackson shifted, rage flickering in his gaze, fighting with fear. "Get out! This is outrageous!" But Mariah felt unshackled by the man's words. A family torn apart, dreams of belonging and warmth stolen by secrets. "Wait!" she blurted out. The crowd shifted. All eyes turned to her, hearts divided between intrigue and judgment. If this is true, Mariah's voice quaked, then everything about Jackson's life, it's a whole lie. The gravity fell, as if time itself paused. Jackson closed his eyes, momentarily retreating into a world where the past didn't come crashing back. "Stop this! You think you know what's going on? You think you can just ... come here and destroy everything?" But the tension thickened, like a storm ready to unleash. The man remained steadfast. "The company your successes, it's built on the back of family secrets no one dares acknowledge. There's more to your rise, Jackson. A flicker of recognition crossed Jackson's face. You don't know what you're talking about. But uncertainty seeped in. Invisible roots of dread dug deeper into his chest. The words echoed. Everything you've built, where does it come from? Suddenly, a loud bang exploded from outside, breaking the bubble. The windows rattled. In an instant, chaos erupted. Guests screamed, instinctively diving to the floor. Mariah shielded Ethan, pulling him close, heart racing. Everyone, stay calm. Jackson barked, but his own voice trembled. Mariah's grip tightened on Ethan. Wonder mixed with terror. What had they just unearthed? The man with the revelation fell to his knees, the past crashing into the present with relentless force. Shadows unfurled around them, dark truths clawing at the surface. The chandelier above trembled, a beautiful facade shattered. And in that moment of panic and uncertainty, Mariah realized the game just got infinitely more dangerous. Who was this man? Why now? And who was really watching? Each answer seemed to twist further into a labyrinth of bigger, darker truths that awaited them all. Mariah's breath hitched, the bang still echoing in her ears. Panic flooded the majestic hall, reigniting a storm of tension. All eyes were on them. Whispers tangled in confusion and fear. The man on the floor, the one claiming to be Jackson's brother, was now the center of speculation. As guests scurried like ants, seeking cover, Mariah's instincts kicked in. She held Ethan tight, feeling his small body tremble against hers. The chaos swirled around them, a cacophony of muffled cries and the clinking of glass. Time stretched. A moment could turn deadly. "Mom, I'm scared," Ethan whispered, his voice a fragile thread. "I know, baby. Just stay close," Mariah replied, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. She cast a glance at Jackson, whose face was a mask of horror. The man who claimed to be his brother rose to his feet, fear still etched in his eyes. "Jackson, you have to understand. They're coming for you, for all of us." He loosened his shirt collar, breathless with urgency. "Their network runs deeper than you realize. They know everything." Jackson's expression flickered between disbelief and dawning comprehension. "Who's coming? What do you mean?" His voice raised, a desperate bark cutting through the chaos. The power in the room shifted, as if the chandeliers above were mourning the dark turn of events. But before the man could answer, another loud crash sounded closer, this time followed by screams echoing from the entrance. A figure burst through the door, a woman, wild-eyed and disheveled, her clothes torn. She staggered inside, breathless. "You need to run! They're here!" Gasps scattered like leaves in a gust. The energy in the room turned electric, charged with fear and disbelief. Mariah's heart raced. She could feel it in the air. A dangerous momentum building. Who's here?" Jackson demanded, voice rising above the din. But before she could reply, a thunderous sound rang loud enough to shake the walls. An explosion erupted from the outside. Dust and debris rained down, showering guests with shrapnel and causing screams to rise like a siren's wail. Mariah shielded Ethan, instinctively crouching down as chaos erupted around her. She dimly registered Jackson moving, trying to protect his son, but uncertainty clawed at him. His empire was shattering, and the truth, His truth lay bare like a wound, open to daylight. "Everyone get down!" the new woman shouted, directing people to safety. Breaking glass pierced the air, along with screams that set Mariah's nerves on fire. In that moment, she understood. The explosion had not been random. Jackson's brother grabbed Jackson by the shoulders, urgency radiating from him. "They know what you've done. They know everything. You can't hide it anymore." "What have I done?" Jackson's voice broke, a crack in his stoic armor. "Everything," the man yelled, cackling with glee, despair painting every word. "You think the empire you built was yours? It's a facade, Jackson! A manipulation!" In that instant, his chalk pus over everyone like a freezing tide. Mariah couldn't breathe. Memories fluttered in her mind. Whispers of money, of deals stitched in the shadows. How had she not seen it before? Suddenly, her phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with another message. "Look behind you." A chill crept down her spine. Who was watching? She turned slowly. A figure stood at the doorway, face obscured in shadow, eyes blazing with a fierce light. The crowd hushed, eyes locked onto the entrance. Could it be a pursuer? Or something much worse? "Isn't it time for the truth to come out?" the figure said, voice smooth and dark. Everything froze. In that moment, Mariah realized that the fractured pieces of her life were tangled with Jackson's, and they were far from the only ones with secrets. Something deep, something horrifying was about to unravel. "Who are you?" she whispered, the words barely escaping her lips. The figure stepped forward, revealing a familiar face. One she thought she'd lost long ago. "It's time you both knew the truth." And with those words, the ground beneath them cracked wide open, the past and present colliding in unthinkable ways. Nothing would ever be the same again. The phone buzzed again, a sharp reminder that eyes were on her. María's hearte reste, coldo de la hice, splayendo pánico por sus ligamentos. Sus manos se temblaban como levantaba el teléfono, y la mirada para atrás sentía el peso del momento presionante sobre pecho. Someone is watching. This goes deeper than you think. She scanned the room, eyes flitting from Jackson's bewildered face to Ethan's, who was caught in a web of confusion. Maria wanted to reach out and comfort him, but the walls of suspense squeezed her breath tight. Suddenly, the doors burst open with a bang. Every head turned. In strolled a figure clad in black, tall, imposing, and unmistakably out of place. Familiar, yet terrifying. It was Carlos, an old associate of Jackson's, someone who knew too much and had been gone too long. The air thickened around him, charged with unspoken tension. "Carlos?" Jackson's voice was a hollow whisper, fear slicing his confidence. Gasps rippled through the gala, silk dresses ruslan, men straightening their ties. Carlos didn't esmalear. His eyes, dark pools, scanned the crowd. "I've come to expose you, Jackson." Each word was a hammer, striking a nail into a forgotten coffin. "This family isn't what you think." Mariah felt the world ripple beneath her. What did he mean? She edged closer to hear, heart thundering. The room shrinking as Jackson's facade shattered further. "You're making a mistake." Jackson tried to laugh it off, but it came out strained. "Oh, I'm aware," Carlos said, a sneer twisting his mouth. "You think you've buried the past deep enough?" You built an empire on stolen dreams, Jackson, on my family's blood. And now it's time for the truth to bleed through. Ethan's face went pale. What do you mean? His voice cracked, innocence battling against the nightmare unraveling around him. Mariah's gut twisted. Blood, family, it was all connected. But how? The thoughts whirled like a tornado in her mind, binding her to the spot, breath halting in her throat. You know what I'm talking about. Your mother, she was taken, just as yours was, Carlos said, pointing right at Mariah. All these years, you never knew your true lineage. He locked eyes with Jackson, malice simmering. And you've been living a lie. A murmur swept through the crowd, disbelief and horror painted across their faces. Murmurs turned into frantic whispers, growing louder, drowning out the harsh reality. Is it true? Someone cried. Did you steal his brother? But darkness fell, swallowing Jackson whole. His expression shifted, muscles tensing, eyes darting like trapped prey. No, it's not! But before he could finish, Carlos raised a hand, halting Jackson's frenzied denial. I've got proof, he said, pulling out a crumpled envelope. Photos, documents, everything you thought was buried. Mariah's breath hitched as the crowd leaned in, hungry for scandal, shocked by the tumult of revelations. She felt someone squeeze her wrist. Ethan. His grip was tight, searching for reassurance she didn't know how to give. Mom? He asked, vulnerability creeping into the cracks of his fortitude. Is this all true? The room held its breath, a palpable pause thickening with dread. And in that heart-stopping moment, as Carlos readied to expose the hidden truths buried within secrets, Mariah realized the unthinkable. Mom? Ethan's voice echoed again, a plea in the chaos. And before she could answer, the lights flickered, dimmed, and for a moment, darkness swallowed them whole. Silence. Then, a loud crash echoed through the grandeur, shattering everything into chaos. Someone screamed. A glass shattered. Mom! Ethan's voice broke through the tumult, a desperate anchor in the storm. But the truth was out, lurking just beneath the surface. Nothing would ever be the same. Mariah's heart raced as the words on her phone blurred. Someone's watching. What did it mean? Who was watching? And why now, when everything was about to change? A chill ran down her spine. The crowd in the ballroom had shifted, eyes flitting between Jackson and Ethan. The buzz of whispers morphed into a low hum, the tension thick enough to slice. Jackson's facade was cracking, bits of his polished smile slipping away, like sand running through fingers. Uncertainty hung between them, heavy and suffocating. Amidst this storm of revelations, a commotion erupted near the back of the room. A woman, wild-eyed and breathless, pushed through the crowd. Her silhouette was unmistakable. It was Leah, Jackson's former assistant, fabled for knowing every secret tucked away in Jackson's empire. Jackson, she gasped, a tremor in her voice. You need to see this! Her cheeks glistened with beads of sweat, urgency sparking in her every movement. Ethan stared, confusion knitting his brow. Who is she? What does she want? Jackson's voice was low, almost a growl. Stay back, Ethan. Leah clutched a folder, papers flapping at the edges like frantic wings. It's about the adoption. It's all in here. She thrust the folder toward him, her hands shaking. You need to know the truth before the night is over. The room fell silent again. The air, electric, thick with tension. Mariah's heart pounded. Was she ready for more secrets? She stepped closer, drawn in by the gravity of Leah's words. Every eye was now on the unfolding drama in front of them. Jackson's face, once a mask of confidence, turned ashen. He gripped the folder, glancing over the contents. His fingers trembled. No, this can't be possible. What is it, Dad? Ethan's voice was small, caught in the eye of a growing storm. Then came the gasp, a collective breath held by the crowd as Jackson suddenly stumbled back. Leah, you can't! This changes everything! With speed born of desperation, Leah spoke. It's true. You've been lying to everyone, Jackson. Ethan isn't the only one. The ones who couldn't speak, the ones who didn't make it. Your past doesn't just haunt you, it haunts everyone. There are more children. A heavy silence fell. The bombshell hung in the air, sizzling with implications. The crowd's murmur turned into a rising tide of disbelief, horror, and a touch of pity for a man whose empire was built on lies. Mariah staggered back. More children? What did that mean for Ethan? Her blood turned to ice. Did Jackson keep secrets about others like her? No! Jackson was gasping now. That's not true! They're gone! I couldn't save them! His hands fell limply at his sides. His facade collapsing under the weight of truths he thought buried forever. Yet another vibration pulsed through Mariah's phone, another text lighting up the screen. Find the files. The truth is worse than you know. Her fingers trembled, heart racing, eyes still locked on Jackson's unraveling reality. Time stretched thin, a blade cutting into dark secrets, echoes of lost children whispering through into every crevice of the room. Ethan's trusting eyes found his father's panic. Dad, what is happening? A newly exposed vulnerability. This wasn't just about paternity anymore. The very foundation of Jackson's wealth and reputation was crumbling, clashing against the raw emotions in the room. As the crowd watched, breathless with anticipation, the boundaries of loyalty shifted. Friends could become enemies. The air buzzed with tension, and eyes darted, hearts pounded, ready for the next truth to be unveiled. And in that moment, everything changed. Endingsen get isabinding. The phone buzzed again, jarring Mariah from her thoughts. The words illuminated on the screen like a warning sign. There, watching. Trust no one. Her heart raced. Who was watching? The room felt suddenly smaller, as if the walls were closing in. Around her, the chatter faded into a hollow echo. Jackson was still standing there, visibly shaken, and Ethan looked lost, the innocence in his eyes overshadowed by confusion. The air pulsed with unacknowledged tension. Mariah took a shaky breath, her eyes darting between Jackson and the heart of her secret. Just as courage swelled within, The grand chandelier flickered ominously, like the universe tipping on its axis. Suddenly, the lights went out completely, plunging the ballroom into darkness. Gasps echoed, mingling with the sounds of shuffling feet. Panic surged through the crowd. Mariah's mind raced. Was this an accident or something more sinister? Then, without warning, a crash echoed as if something heavy had fallen. Muffled yells rose in urgency, voices clamoring in disharmony. In that chaotic moment, Mariah felt a tug at her sleeve. It was Ethan, his small hand gripping hers with surprising strength. "Mom," he whispered, his voice trembling. The word sliced through the chaos like a knife. That single, simple word held all the weight of their shared past, of longing and love unspoken. But before she could answer, the lights flickered back to life, a momentary flicker revealing chaos. Jackson stood at the edge of the dance floor, one hand clutching his chest, the other pointing towards the staircase. Shock painted his face. "No, not now!" he shouted, eyes wild. There, in the doorway, stood a tall figure draped in black, their face obscured. The room halted, breaths suspended. The stranger surveyed the crowd, the silence heavy. Everyone's gaze was drawn to them, a stillness enveloping the frantic shouts and scrambles for safety. "What do you want?" someone shouted, but the words felt impotent. The figure stepped forward into the light, and the gasps morphed into a collective intake of shock. A woman marred by time, with a haunted gaze that pierced through the crowd. She was older, but Mariah would recognize those eyes anywhere. "Mariah!" she implored, her tone raw, desperate. "I need to talk to you. It's about Ethan and Jackson." Mariah's breath hitched. She felt her world teetering. Was this truly happening? The woman who had vanished from her life years ago, who had meant to keep her away from all that was broken. "How could you?" "Not here, please," the woman urged. "You don't know the truth. Everything you think you know. It's more complicated." Mariah's fingers tightened around Ethan's hand, her heart pounding in dread and disbelief. The warm bubble of comfort she had built around her, the tender bond growing with Ethan, felt at risk. Jackson moved closer, his face a mask of fury and confusion. "Who is this?" he demanded, stepping towards them. "What do you know about my son?" Before anyone could respond, the woman turned, as if hearing something unseen. "They're coming," she whispered, panic lacing her voice. "You need to decide who you trust, now." Suddenly the lights flickered again, not a simple, unstable current. This time, a piercing flash revealed armed figures in uniforms. Just outside the entrance, they were storming in, voices rising. "Everyone stay where you are," they ordered, echoing the chaos. Mariah's heart thundered. What the hell is going on? She thought. And just like that, everything slipped from her grasp. Was Jackson her enemy or ally? What had that unknown woman unleashed? One thing was clear. The secrets were escaping, and they were tangled in a web far darker than she ever imagined. The phone buzzed again, jarring Mariah from her thoughts. The words illuminated on the screen like a warning sign. They're watching. Trust no one. Her heart raced. Who was watching? The room felt suddenly smaller, as if the walls were closing in. Around her, the chatter faded into a hollow echo. Jackson was still standing there, visibly shaken, and Ethan looked lost, the innocence in his eyes overshadowed by confusion. The air pulsed with unacknowledged tension. Mariah took a shaky breath, her eyes darting between Jackson and the heart of her secret. Just as courage swelled within, the grand chandelier flickered ominously, like the universe tipping on its axis. Suddenly, the lights went out completely, plunging the ballroom into darkness. Gasps echoed, mingling with the sounds of shuffling feet. Panic surged through the crowd. Mariah's mind raced. Was this an accident or something more sinister? Then, without warning, a crash echoed as if something heavy had fallen. Muffled yells rose in urgency, voices clamoring in disharmony. In that chaotic moment, Mariah felt a tug at her sleeve. It was Ethan, his small hand gripping hers with surprising strength. "Mom," he whispered, his voice trembling. The word sliced through the chaos like a knife. That single, simple word held all the weight of their shared past, of longing and love unspoken. But before she could answer, the lights flickered back to life. A momentary flicker revealing chaos. Jackson stood at the edge of the dance floor, one hand clutching his chest, the other pointing towards the staircase. Shock painted his face. "No, not now," he shouted, eyes wild. There, in the doorway, stood a tall figure, draped in black, their face obscured. The room halted, breaths suspended. The stranger surveyed the crowd, the silence heavy. Everyone's gaze was drawn to them, a stillness enveloping the frantic shouts and scrambles for safety. "What do you want?" someone shouted, but the words felt impotent. The figure stepped forward into the light, and the gasps morphed into a collective intake of shock. A woman, marred by time, with a haunted gaze that pierced through the crowd. She was older, but Mariah would recognize those eyes anywhere. "Mariah," she implored, her tone raw, desperate. "I need to talk to you. It's about Ethan and Jackson." Mariah's breath hitched. She felt her world teetering. Was this truly happening? The woman who had vanished from her life years ago, who had meant to keep her away from all that was broken. "How could you?" "Not here, please," the woman urged. "You don't know the truth. Everything you think you know? It's more complicated." Mariah's fingers tightened around Ethan's hand, her heart pounding in dread and disbelief. The warm bubble of comfort she had built around her, the tender bond growing with Ethan, felt at risk. Jackson moved closer, his face a mask of fury and confusion. "Who is this?" he demanded, stepping towards them. "What do you know about my son?" Before anyone could respond, the woman turned, as if hearing something unseen. "They're coming," she whispered, panic lacing her voice. "You need to decide who you trust. Now!" Suddenly, the lights flickered again. Not a simple unstable current. This time, a piercing flash revealed armed figures in uniforms. Just outside the entrance, they were storming in, voices rising. "Everyone stay where you are," they ordered, echoing the chaos. Mariah's heart thundered. What the hell is going on? She thought. And just like that, everything slipped from her grasp. Was Jackson her enemy or ally? What had that unknown woman unleashed? One thing was clear. The secrets were escaping, and they were tangled in a web far darker than she ever imagined. Then, in the middle of it all, the woman stepped forward, urgency in her gaze. "Jackson, I have to show you something. You won't believe it." She pulled out a worn, frayed notebook, pages yellowing as if aged by tears and time. This is our mother's journal. It contains everything about your father, our real family ties, and their connection to Ethan. The crowd, still buzzing with uncertainty, turned silent. Mariah felt the air crackle, a moment of anticipation building, dread pooling in her gut. "What? No, this can't be." Jackson's voice faltered, both terror and disbelief warping his features. "Your father isn't who you think he is," she continued. And as the authority of her words sank in, a new fear gripped the room. Our real mother, she didn't abandon us. She was forced to give us up. Gasps slipped through the crowd, eyes darting like leaves in a storm. "What do you mean?" someone asked, but the woman pressed on. "Jackson, look at Ethan," she cried, voice lifting like a desperate plea. "He is the key! He is—" But before she could finish, a shot rang out, a deafening crack that silenced all sound. Mariah's heart dropped. Jackson stared, disbelief transforming into horror. Panic turned to chaos. Screams tore through the hall. The crowd, shoving against one another, desperately seeking escape. Ethan fell to the ground, gasping, clutching his shoulder in shock. "Mom!" he cried. Mariah dropped beside him, her heart collapsing into 1,000 pieces. "Ethan! No!" The pain surged through her, every joint heavy, every breath a fight against the tide of despair. Jackson fell beside them, but the world around them blurred into chaos. All she could see was Ethan, pain etched on his face. Mom, his voice faded, eyes fluttering like newly opened petals without sunlight. And in that moment, everything shattered. The revelations, the family ties, the truth of who they were, all collided in a heart-stopping intimacy. The woman spun away, terror in her eyes as she fled from the scene. "You need to trust each other now," she screamed, over her shoulder, panic driving her. Then Mariah looked back at Jackson, and what she saw froze her heart. The man she thought she knew, the father to her son, now burdened by shadows darker than she could ever know. What have we gotten into? As shock rippled around them and the chaos erupted, she realized nothing would ever be the same again. The lines between family and enemy had blurred, and the stakes had never felt so high. All that was left was the unanswered question: who could possibly be trusted now? Mariah's heart raced as she knelt beside Ethan, cradling him against her. Adrenaline surged. She felt his small body tremble under her hands. Every breath he took, a desperate whisper. Everything around them faded. The chaos, the explosions, the swirl of frightened faces. It was just her and her boy, bound by the terror of this moment. Above them, Jackson's face twisted between terror and rage. "No, no, no!" he shouted, panic rising like a tide. He reached for Ethan, his hands hovering, torn between the instinct to help and the fear erupting around them. "Someone get help!" he called out to the crowd, his voice cracking, but no one moved. All eyes were glued to the boy on the floor. The adrenaline in the air sparked, heavy and thick. An electric tension pulsed through everyone, and in that moment, Mariah felt something change. There was a deeper darkness washing over them, and she could sense it shifting, like the ground beneath her feet. Ethan reached up, pain etched across his features. "Mom, I can't. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Her heart shattered at the sight. "Stay with me, sweetheart." "Just hold on." She wiped his tears with shaking fingers, desperation clawing at her chest. But as she focused on Ethan, she heard Jackson shouting again. "What's happening? What's going on?" His voice was frantic, filled with betrayal as much as fear. Suddenly, the black-clad woman who had brought chaos entered the scene, her presence cutting through the turmoil. "Jackson, you have to—" But her words were drowned out by a deafening crash. The whole ballroom shook. An enormous ceiling panel descended from above, splintering and falling toward them, ready to crush anyone in its descent. "Get down!" Mariah shouted, pulling Ethan closer, shielding him with her body. Time slowed. She felt the ground rumble beneath her, the weight of shadows crashing in. But she didn't let go. And then it hit. The panel smashed to the ground, but it exploded like fireworks. It revealed something buried, something unfathomable. Below it lay a hidden trapdoor, cracked open, with a stench of rot and decay spilling out. Spectators gasped, faces twisting in disbelief. The woman in black stared wide-eyed at the opening, horror painting her face. "No, it can't be!" she gasped, stepping back as if the very abyss had opened beneath her. And then Jackson, a man rapidly untangling from his facade of power, collapsed to his knees beside the trapdoor. Panic replaced his anger. "What is this?" he cried, voice teetering on the edge. From the darkness, a child's laugh floated upward, sing-song and sweet, completely out of place. The sound sliced through the chaos with chilling permanence. "Daddy?" The voice echoed an innocence long lost, filling the ballroom with a haunting chill. Jackson's eyes widened, dawning horror, turning his face pale. "No, it can't be," he choked out, understanding flooding over him. "She promised, she said they were gone. They were—" The crowd trembled, uncertainty hovering over them all, whispers twisting like smoke. What had been only rumors and speculations about Jackson's empire, about lost children, suddenly felt all too real. The truth gripped them. Mariah's stomach twisted. Something inside her churned, the air thick with unspoken pain. "Who is down there?" she whispered to herself, already knowing the answer. She looked up at Jackson, searching for any sign of stability, but his eyes were glassy, completely lost. Suddenly, from the shadows, a figure emerged. A small girl, no older than Ethan, with dirty clothes and wild hair. "Daddy, come play!" she called, as if the chaos around them was merely a game. Mariah's breath caught in her throat. The weight of discovery struck her. This was not just about familial ties. It was about lives shattered, secrets buried, and a reality that changed everything. Ethan turned to her, eyes wide. "Mom, who is she?" Jackson trembled, unable to respond. As the girl stepped forward, her sweet smile gleaming wickedly against the backdrop of chaos. She reached for Jackson, innocence stark amidst the storm of unveiled horrors. "You didn't forget me?" For Mariah, the world tilted, and she grasped Ethan tighter. Everything had shifted. Trust shattered. Family ties seemed like mere threads, unraveling at every turn. In that moment, with gasps echoing through the crowd, she understood. They were all caught in a trap, and the walls were closing in, dark and unforgiving. The true game was only just beginning. The stakes infinitely higher than anyone had anticipated. And the past? The past was far from buried. Mariah's heart raced as she held Ethan close, the chaos around them fading into an echo of urgency. "Stay with me, baby," she whispered, her fingers brushing the sweat from his brow. Jackson was still staring at the girl, a mixture of shock and denial sweeping over his face. The girl stepped closer, giggling as if they were just playing a game. "Come on, Daddy, don't you want to play?" The innocence in her voice felt like a cruel joke, cutting deeper than any blade. "Stop!" Jackson shouted, breaking free from the spell of disbelief. He lunged forward, reaching for the child. "Where have you been? What happened to you?" His voice cracked, the weight of their shared history crashing around them. Ethan's eyes darted between the girl and his father. "Who is she, Mom?" Friendly, his little voice trembled as he gripped Mariah's arm tighter. She can't be real," Mariah said softly, her heart sinking. "Jackson, you have to tell me this isn't happening. We have to get out of here." But before Jackson could respond, chaos erupted once more. The door burst open and armed officers flooded the ballroom. "Stay down," they shouted, guns drawn, eyes scanning the room for trouble. Everyone screamed and ducked, panic rising like a tidal wave. Mariah shielded Ethan, holding him close. She glanced up at Jackson, his expression distressed, lost in a storm of emotions that swirled amid the fear and confusion. Then everything crashed together. Jackson's family secrets, Mariah's heartbreak, and the little girl's laughter echoed like a siren. The room spun. "What do they want? What is happening?" Jackson shouted, eyes wide as he turned to the woman who had brought them here. "They want the truth," she cried, urgency in her voice. "You can't hide it any longer. They'll expose everything." "Everything?" he echoed, his voice trembling, his face pale. Suddenly, the little girl laughed again, her sound a chilling melody enveloping the chaos. "I'm not hiding. I'm here." She moved toward them like a ghost, her tiny footsteps echoing. "Get away from her!" Mariah's voice rose above the clamor, fierce and protective. But Ethan was already moving, a bond stronger than fear igniting in his chest. "No, wait!" He rushed toward the girl, eyes full of innocence. Mariah's breath caught, panic washing over her. "Ethan, no!" Jackson cried, reaching out. The moment stretched infinitesimally, air thick with desperation. The girl reached out a hand, a glimmer of familiarity sparkling in her eyes. "I wanted to find you, Daddy." Bushes rustled outside, muffled shouting rising up. The officers advanced, demanding answers. But nothing mattered except the truth festering beneath their surface. A family hidden and lost. "Stop! You don't know what you're doing!" Jackson shrieked, dread coloring his words. One officer stepped forward, voice firm. "We're here for the truth, Mr. Pierce. All of it." The ground beneath them shook with the weight of secrets. "This is it," the woman warned, her voice a whisper. "The truth is coming out, whether you're ready or not." Ethan turned back, eyes wide, searching for reassurance. "Mom, what do we do?" Time hung in the air, every heartbeat pounding like a drum. Maria's heart sank. What could she say? Everything was crumbling. "Follow me!" the woman shouted, urgency demanding action. We need to get out now! But as they turned to escape, the lights flickered, shadows shifted, and for a split second, all eyes were on the trapdoor below, a path leading into dark unknown. "Go!" Jackson yelled, pushing Mariah and Ethan forward. They had to run, but just when hope seemed tangible, the room exploded into chaos once more. A smash filled the air as the trapdoor's ancient wood splintered, revealing not just secrets, but the unsettling history of generations intertwined. "What happens now?" Mariah whispered, panic twisting her gut. The girl giggled again, innocent yet eerie in the chaos. "Time to play!" Everything changed in an instant. The truth, the connections, the future, all enveloped in a dark mystery. As they rushed through the room and shadows danced behind them, one question lingered. What lay beneath? And as they plunged ahead, Mariah couldn't shake off the feeling that this was only the beginning. Now you've reached the end of this tale. But the adventure doesn't stop here. You have to subscribe now so you don't miss the upcoming exclusive stories that will leave you breathless. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and help the channel grow. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. And don't wait even a second longer to share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. Support your favorite storyteller and keep the magic alive.